4, 3, 2, 1. Buckle your seatbelts, batten down the hatches. Coming to you live from the Blazar Podcast Studios in Space City, Texas. It's time once again for the Capital Catalyst Show, the podcast for entrepreneurs to learn the secrets of attracting, raising, and closing capital from high net worth investors. Dedicated to your success, this is the Capital Catalyst Show. Now here's your host, Brad Blazar.
Hey, welcome back, listeners. It is the King of Capital here once again, Brad Blazar, the Capital Catalyst Show, coming live to you from our studios here outside of Houston, Texas. And as you know, we always like to bring guests on that have had tremendous success in one of two things, either creating wealth or, more importantly, raising capital from high net worth individuals. Today, I've got a great guest. He is one of the founding partners and principals behind LifeBridge Capital. How you doing today, Whitney?
I am excellent. Thanks for inviting me, Brad.
Great. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. We're building a relationship. We're getting to know each other. I always like to kind of start with what I call people's past. I was looking at your bio, if you will, kind of your background, and you were not always the multifamily capital raising entrepreneur that you are today. There were some decisions you probably made in life with your wife that led you to where you are. Can you kind of go back a couple of years and maybe tell everybody, how you transitioned out of what you were doing before and you got into what you're doing today?
Of course. Brad, it goes back to March of 2001, and everybody knows what happened in September. But in March, I decided to join the military. Of course, I had no idea what was about to happen, and I found myself, just shortly after spending a year in Iraq. And that's definitely a life-changing event for anyone, I believe. Unfortunately, not everyone in my squad made it home. And so obviously just lots of lessons learned there. But, the military taught me a lot. And one major thing is to have a never give up mentality. It's not an option to give up, when your battle buddy or other soldiers beside you are counting on you to perform. And I think I've carried that forward in a lot of aspects, especially in entrepreneurship. But came home from Iraq, had no idea what I was going to do for a career. I had no college degree. I thought, okay, like wearing the uniform, the structure, the discipline, that was kind of all I knew. So I transitioned into policing and got hired by Kentucky State Police. 1,200 applicants for 5 positions. I was blessed to have one of those. I loved working the road as a police officer, being a first responder, and again, the structure, the uniform, I loved that. But Brad, what happened is I got married, and I found out pretty quickly, because the first couple of years of policing, I would have done it for free. I loved doing it. But however, it's hard to support a family. I figured out on, let's say, $28,000 a year. And so, it was really that time that pushed me into thinking, okay, what can I do to supplement my income? And so I started searching and figured out, okay, there's this thing, real estate, rental property. Like I'd not been exposed to that before. And I thought, okay, let's see if we can pull this off somehow, Brad. We bought 2 triplexes. Looking back, why the bank loaned us the money, I have no idea. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. But we made a lot of mistakes. And unfortunately, I learned a lot the hard way. And I then became a federal agent. That moved us to Virginia. We sold those properties. I still knew real estate was the way to build wealth, but I was a federal agent for a number of years. And then finally, what happened is I took the normal path to real estate success that most people do. I think, Brad, you may have taken this path as well, but I became a professional horse trainer. Is that what you did? Just kidding. But I did. It was just a passion of mine since I was a little boy. But what happened, Brad, is I was working full time for the federal government, and then I was training horses professionally until midnight most nights, giving lessons, and I was selling horses and doing clinics all over the country and teaching people horsemanship skills. It was another brand, that I grew, and it was just a passion of mine. It was great. However, it was more than 2 full-time jobs. And my wife and I were on the beach one fall walking and just thinking, hey, is what we're doing right now going to get us where we want to go 5 years from now or even 10 years from now? And the obvious answer was absolutely not. I mean, I was just missing everything with our kids and with her. And I just said, okay, we got to make a big change. We literally came home and sold the farm. and we sold everything related to the horse training business. We were starting another adoption process, which I'll talk about a little bit because that's a big part of our capital raising, and we'll talk about how that's connected. But, coming home and committing to really real estate, knowing that real estate could build wealth, and saying, you know what, this may not be forever, but we're going to get rid of this other passion, this other business, the horse training, the farm. And everybody thought we were crazy. I mean, our church family, everybody thought, wait a minute, there's got to be something horrible happening at the Sewell household for them to have sold the farm, sold the house, right? Like, what is happening? And now he's planning to leave this federal position that seems so amazing and secure and benefits and all these things that most of our families saw, right? A pension, oh my goodness, you only worked 35 years there and you got a retirement. Exactly. You got to work, So anyway, we sold the farm, and we moved into a rental, and we started the daily podcast, the real estate syndication show. I've interviewed over 2,000 people in our industry, over the last 6 or 7 years. And ultimately that's where the capital raising started in a massive way. And happy to get into that, but that's the backstory. I think each of those pieces have played a role in our real estate business today, and building relationships and being able to raise money, and just having those pieces that have helped me in so many ways.
I love it. You're in a wonderful place. I actually raised a lot of money in Kentucky, and so I've been to some of those farms in Versailles and Frankfurt, and that's horse country out there. And there's a expression that we sometimes like to say, and that is, I bet the farm. You literally bet the farm. No kidding, no joking. And it's funny, I dated a young lady for many years that was a professional trainer. And let's just say I've seen some horse trailers, and then I see the horse trailers that they use to take some big time show horses. Man, I'll say some of those horses live better than we do on some of those.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Especially the ones that, the Saudi princes have out there. They take these horses to the Belmont, into the Kentucky Derby. I mean, those stables just so immaculate, and veterinary staff right there at the facility in the event something happens. It's a whole different world. But
many years ago, really quick story. Many years ago, I actually shod horses for a living. And before I was in policing and military, I was shoeing horses, and I could do blacksmithing and therapeutic shoeing, all this. But I was working in that area of Versailles and whatnot. And I was at this really fancy barn, and this guy was building this elaborate place. It was amazing. And to build the barn, he literally had helicopters take the material from the road and bring it up on the hill so the trucks didn't tear his driveway and stuff up. And then the stalls were not the right color, and so he literally brings a coffee table out there to the stall. I mean, this amazing barn. I mean, this is just immaculate, right? He brings this coffee table out there and says, "I want them to look like that." I mean, I cannot fathom. I'm glad I'm working for you. I'm glad I'm shoeing your horses. But
when money's not an object, and that area is, of course, known for a lot of wealth and a lot of money.
That's right.
The bigger $1 million question is, knowing that was your past, have you gone back to your past and raised any money out of any people in the horse business? Any owners?
It's interesting. I do have some horse connections, not from the farrier side, where when I was shoeing. I mean, that's been so long ago, but from the riding days, and training days, sure. There's been definitely relationships there that have carried over.
Sure. Yeah, I know polo, as they call it, it's the sport of kings. A lot of money in that business, a lot of money, of course, in them horses. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So you got started, yourself, obviously, using some of your own money, like you said, bought a couple triplexes, then relocated, realized, I'm assuming when you sold, you had a nice little windfall. You're like, wow, this is pretty nice. Made more in a transaction than they make working all year, $28,000. How did you approach capital raising? I find that to do it and do it on scale like you do and like I do, you need to have systems. You need to have structure. You need to bring professionalism to what you do. And so many people just kind of go out there, they get a deal, they start talking haphazardly to people, and, they get sloppy, they forget to follow up. Like, talk to me about maybe the first, 12 to 18 months in your capital raising journey. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I'll even back up a little bit. I wanted to clarify, those two triplexes, I actually had somebody, borrowed the money from somebody for the down payment. I had an investor that partnered with me. He did get his money back, but we didn't make anything on those deals. But we didn't lose any money either. I mean, it was a major learning experience, to say the least. But I still knew that real estate could build wealth, right? And so we still pushed forward. I still knew that, hey, I needed to surround myself with people that were way ahead of me, right? I didn't do that well then and made some mistakes. Thankfully, not financially catastrophic mistakes, but still, we learned a lot. And so we moved forward. We didn't make anything off those properties, but many years later, again, I knew that real estate could build wealth. But when we moved to Virginia, Brad, the first weekend we were here, we heard a pastor talk about how they had adopted and how there's 150 million orphans in the world. And I'm getting to your question, but this is a big part of it. And so my wife and I were still newly married, and we had never considered this thing called adoption, or never considered that there's 150 million orphans in the world. That never crossed our mind. We grew up, like I said, one stoplight town. We didn't know anybody that was adopted or had adopted. However, on our way home from this event, all we could do is ask ourselves is, why would we not adopt? Like it just seemed like the right thing to do. We had no idea what we were getting into, and I'm so thankful for our ignorance in the process, or we may not have done it. But within a week, we applied to adopt from Ethiopia. 2 years later, our first son, Samuel, comes home from Ethiopia. Well, we thought, if it's going to take that long, we better get started again. And so we did. Well, about 10 months later, our second son, Elijah, was born and came to our family through adoption. A few years later, we had another daughter, Eden Joy, who came to our family through adoption. Now we have another daughter, Selah, who's a year old, who came to our family through adoption. And so all that to say, the process of adoption can be 50 to 70 grand, unfortunately, or even more at times. It's a horrible thing that it costs so much. However, that keeps most families, or many, from being able to pursue adoption that would be great parents, right? Mm-hmm. And so the first couple processes for us, were difficult financially. We had lots of fundraising, all these things, right? And then obviously it was about the time the real estate business started taking off, some of those things. So the next couple were easier for us financially. But what we wanted to do was help many other people to get past that burden. And so we started a foundation. It's called OMNA, OMNAH, and it helps families. It provides large grants. And so back to LifeBridge. So that was our mission behind LifeBridge from the very beginning, Brad, was to be able to help these families to be able to bring their children home. And so when I started raising money, and I didn't plan it this way, but this is the way I started seeing it working. I started just the way the Lord had a plan here. But I went to every networking event, every conference I could possibly go to, Brad, when we started. I came from like I said, a little bitty town. Nobody in my family's ever been wealthy enough to do any kind of investing in any way. I mean, like that was never a thought in their mind to be able to invest, really. My grandfather owned a little bitty strip mall at one time, but other than that, there's none of that. And so my network had to be built myself. It would, the no money from family or myself in the very beginning, other than this time. So go to conference to conference to conference to conference. And what I found is that what would happen is that people say, well, what do you do? And I would lead with, well, we have a foundation that helps families adopt children. It can cost 50 to 70 grand to bring children home, unfortunately, through adoption. We have families now that really need help, and we're trying to help them. But we fund that through our commercial real estate business. And so our investors love knowing they're playing a role in that, but it doesn't affect their returns at all, right? And I might elaborate just a little bit, but ultimately it opens up our whole mission and who we are at LifeBridge. It opens up a more personal side of who I am and something I'm passionate about. And then what happens, Brad, is almost always they respond with something they're passionate about, or they tell me about their kids or their grandkids or something like that, right? And we're building a different relationship and a very different conversation than, guess what, the last 20 people that they've talked to that all talked about the real estate deal that they're doing or the market that they're in and all that. I say, well, we can talk about business, in a bit, right? Or maybe even today, or maybe even when I follow up. But right now, I want to really focus on the relationship. And I want you to see who I am a little deeper than just a multifamily guy, right? Or a real estate investor. And what I found is, like you said, the follow-up is crucial. And I find that at that conference where there's 200 to 1,000 or 2,000, however many people there, most people never follow up.
Right.
And it's like, why did you even go? Why did you spend all this time and money going to this conference to meet people, and then you're putting in no effort on the follow-up, no effort on these relationships? And so I would follow up and start and try to get somebody on a call, right? And more times than not, after they've even talked to 20, 30, 50, 100 people, they would remember who I am because of that mission, because of that thing that was very different about who we are. And then we can talk about real estate and we can talk about the next deal or whatever, but we've built a connection that was much deeper than just talking about the next multifamily deal that everybody else is talking about at the same time.
Right.
And so again, I didn't plan it that way, but I started seeing that happen and that they remembered who I was. And then we've built off of that, in a big way.
Fantastic. So many times we hear people talk about, purpose-driven mission. And that's what gets you out of bed every day. That's what allows you to get up when you get knocked down. It's what you're doing serves a bigger purpose. And, it helps me now much better understand, of course, the name of the company, Life Bridge. That's exactly what you are. You're providing a bridge for people to come over and become members of families here in the United States. Beautiful mission. It's interesting. Probably don't know of this other very successful real estate entrepreneur, but he's doing something very similar. My good friend Carr Taylor was the founder of a very successful, very prominent real estate company based in Houston, Texas, that ultimately traded on the exchange. It was called Amri, and they were one of the most successful real estate investment trusts in the retail sector. And he started a foundation much like yours called Pathways to Little Feet.
Oh, we know of Pathways.
Oh, you know of Pathways. Okay.
Yeah, on our organization may even partner with them a little bit to help families. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Carr Taylor. And is a fantastic family and wife here in Houston, good friends of ours. And, it's amazing when you go into Carr's office. He's got a family office here in Houston, and you walk in, there are pictures of all the little children from all around the world just lining the walls. And it's not just 3 or 6 or 10. There's literally, probably today, hundreds, just because he's done so well. And he has, philanthropic dinners and, people, of course, buy a table for the charity and the fundraising. But it's that purpose-driven mission that I absolutely love. And what I love more importantly is that the conversations you're having with people are not specifically around multifamily or investing. It's, something that you can talk about that gets interest, but now through the investment as a vehicle, they also are participating in serving this bigger mission as well. And that's something that I really, really am passionate about and believe in. I actually support cancer research. And so a lot of what I do in my coaching, my speaking, my training, the book sales, part of that obviously goes to MD Anderson Cancer Research. And, that's one of my big things that we're passionate about. Let me ask you this. I'm sure that in your capital raising, like most of us, you probably have made some mistakes. But if you look over the years and you're speaking to somebody new at this, that's just getting started, maybe they've raised just a couple $100,000, or maybe they're at their first $1 million, but they're not nearly as successful as you have been, or certainly as I have been. What would you share with that new capital raiser, Whitney, as something that maybe you've done or maybe a mistake you made to help somebody not make that same mistake?
Yeah, there's so many mistakes. We have to learn from so many things. But and maybe it's cliche, but I still believe it's surrounding yourself with the right people. It just minimizes the mistakes, right? Having somebody like yourself or others or a mastermind of people who care about you, care about your success. You're not just a number, right? And have gone before you, right? That has saved me so many mistakes. And I think a guy that was a mentor, actually, very early on, I hired Joe Fairless. I don't know if you know Joe, as a mentor, and this was, much earlier in his career as well. But we've become good friends, and now we're doing very similar type deals and whatnot. But it's almost more of a mastermind type meeting now when we meet. It's really cool. But early on, he was way ahead of me in capital raising. He still is. But he is having somebody like that, being able to just say, hey, Joe, would you look at this offering that we have? Right? Mm-hmm. Would you poke holes in this? Would you, how do you see this as an investor? Or how did you do this? Right? Sure. That has helped me. And he's one of a number of mentors that I've had and still people that I consider mentors in the space. But that has just been crucial for us. Right? Mm-hmm. And I would, early on too, one thing that has helped us later is just being very organized, because we weren't always very organized, or even things like having an investor portal, right? It's just been crucial. And oftentimes something like that's maybe more difficult to have if you're just getting started. You've just raised a couple $100,000, or maybe you haven't raised anything yet. But, even working with somebody, partnering on a project, I think is crucial early on, because then you're going to be working with that person's track record. You're going to be able to boast about their track record because you have none. It's going to give you more confidence in the conversation, right? You're talking to an investor and you've not done a deal yet, and they start asking you about that. All of a sudden, your confidence just kind of melts, right? It just withers over here, But you can say, oh yeah, well the team has done, $500 million in real estate or whatever it may be, or $2 billion, or whoever this partner is. I mean, it just all of a sudden boosts your confidence because you're sharing about this team that's around this asset, right? It's not just you specifically. I think that also was crucial for me in getting started with no background. I was at an event yesterday with Art Laffer. I don't know if you know him. He's an economic advisor for Reagan and Trump. He's 84 wow. and still traveling around and talking about the economy. Just an amazing mind. But he's written some really great books around taxes and the economy and all this stuff too. But even hearing him yesterday talk about just different things in our business, but things that how he surrounded himself with the right people through his career and how he's grown, by being around the right people and growing. I mean, it's like he's 84 and he's connected to so many top people, but he's still looking to grow and he's still looking for people that are ahead of him. And anyway, it was just that even now, like I'm always looking for the next level mastermind. I'm always looking for the people that are ahead of me or that next mentor. It's just been crucial. Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a team sport. There's no doubt about it. We've built some pretty good relationships with a couple of people from the Shark Tank, whether it's Kevin Harrington, Robert Herjavec. And, in speaking to them, they'll tell you, we got some great, smart people that come on the Shark Tank. As we know, we watch TV, we got doctors, we got PhDs, we got engineers, and, they got a good product, but then they don't get a deal. And usually at the end of the conversation, it comes down to one thing. It's that person is a wantrepreneur. They're not an entrepreneur. They're trying to do everything all by themselves. And so there's doubt in the minds of us sharks as it relates to can this person really execute on what they're trying to do? And that word is so important, execution. Why would any investor want to give you their capital if there's doubt in their mind on your ability to execute? But when you bring together that team that you spoke about, that is so very important because now your story is much different. It's not you, it's my team has a collective experience and working in the space for over 50 years. I've got this person that's handling the legal and the compliance. I've got this person over here who's our bookkeeper or, our CPA. I've got, our admin over here is doing investor relations, the newsletters, the reporting to you to keep you up to speed on what's going on. Now they see that you're kind of like the composer in front of an orchestra. You got all these people and now they're like, okay, I can see much more certainty and I have much greater believability in their ability to do this because it's not just Whitney trying to do everything. It's Whitney and his team here that's going to bring certainty to the outcome. And so absolutely. I
think early on too, Brad, like people are, I hear it all the time, especially when I was getting started and you're in those same rooms with people getting started. They're trying to partner with somebody. Well, their biggest concern often mistakenly is how much money am I going to make?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, like this person that you're trying to partner with, they don't probably need you, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're giving you this opportunity, and so I try to stress to people, like, if you can find somebody that, hey, this is somebody that I'd like to be like in 5 years or they're way ahead of me type, and they're going to give you the opportunity to partner with them, offer to do it for free. Right. Sure. Just be around them, be in their network and learn from them. Go work at McDonald's at night so you can go work with them during the day for free. Like if you have a family and kids, well, that's a different story. You may have to work out something different. But I'm just saying, like, really strive to be invested in that relationship, right? Because they probably don't really need you. But if they are offering for you to come in and partner on this project, man, that is a major opportunity for your track record and your experience and moving forward. And because by the second deal, you're going to be so much more ready to speak to investors. And by the third deal, you're going to be so much more ready to speak to them, be more confident, right?
Absolutely. One thing that I think is important in building a business and scaling it to the extent you have at Lightbridge is partner support. And you kind of talked about being a newlywed, kind of realizing, hey, being a policeman ain't going to cut it, $28,000 a year salary. Was your partner involved in the early years of building LifeBridge? Did you have a kind of a partnership, or was it kind of you doing it on your own and she was out here doing her thing, where maybe she came into the business at a later stage? We hear about in coaching these power couples, right? You follow people like, Grant Cardone, of course, and Elena, or, Andy Elliott and his wife, Jacqueline, Coach Michael Burt, his wife, Natalie. How involved was your spouse in the early stages of building the business?
That is such a good question. I love that because I'm so big on the keeping your marriage, big focus on your marriage, not just losing it because you're so focused on business, because it's so common, right?
What happens is one person grows while the other stagnates. And so that's what leads to dissension and a lot of times divorce and separation. You become a completely different person from the one that individual fell in love with, and you don't grow together. So I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah. So early on, Brad, it even goes back to our mission because, we have 4 children through adoption. And so this mission also became something that's very important to my wife as well. Right. Mm-hmm. And so early on when we were starting, I was still a federal agent. I was traveling 2 to 3 weekends a month all over the country to conferences as hard as I could go. We were recording a daily podcast. So every other Monday that I was off work for the federal agent position, I built a team of virtual assistants all over the world, and I would record 12 to 15 interviews back to back to back to back to back, just like this, all day long. My wife called it my marathon day. She would literally pack my lunch for me to go to the basement. It was just madness, right? But it was as hard as I could possibly go to try to meet as many people as I could, as fast as I could, right? 7 days, a 7-day-a-week podcast. And we were, I guess we had a failed placement, we had our 3rd adoption. It was madness. So I look back at that and I just think, I don't know why we're still married, because it was just crazy. But man, if not for the Lord, I don't think we would have been. But one thing that really helped us during that time, Brad, is being up early. Like I became an early riser a number of years before that. And that has just been a crucial time for me. Just whether it's exercise, reading, time with the Lord, time with my wife, time for us to catch up on what's happening with the kids, right? Because when I was working that many hours in that long of a period, of a couple of years or 3 years, something like that, of just really almost 2 full-time positions, you still got to connect with your spouse, right? You still have to have the time to do that. And so, while I say she couldn't care less about real estate. If I'd have been pushing hard as I could go still in training horses and pursuing that, I think if she would have still been behind me 100%. But she cares about our mission, right? She loves that, hey, we're very focused, on helping families bring their children home to adoption. And so she was completely supportive of me, through that entire period, and still is, because, she loves this mission, right? In a massive way. So she's very connected in that way. But while she's not in the day-to-day of the real estate business, well, she's doing everything in the house, like supporting me in a massive way. We're homeschooling our children. She's doing all of that. I think no credit, by the way, cooking every meal and making sure I'm taken care of. And the kids are taking, it's more than a full-time position. I say she works a lot harder than I do, but it is a team effort, no doubt about it. But we just we put just a lot of importance and priority on marriage, our faith, marriage, and also our children, right? And there's different things that have come about over the years that have helped me to not be so just entrenched in this, in business that it takes so much away from what's really most important and really what's going to build true wealth, right? Yeah. Legacy.
I don't know the ages of your children, but one thing I do know is that our traditional educational system really has failed us in teaching people the basics of saving, creating wealth. I think that largely our education system just trains you to fit into society, get a job, like you said, work your 35, 40 years, scrimp and save for some type of a measly retirement, where, you've obviously mastered wealth creation. You've got a couple $100 million in real estate assets, obviously done very, very well building LifeBridge and kind of being on this mission. What are the thoughts as you're raising your kids? Are you looking to bring them into the business, or are you at least planting seeds of entrepreneurship in their minds at a young age so that they understand the difference between, tangible assets that provide passive income to create the freedom in life where they're no longer exchanging time for money, or as a parent, you're just kind of like, no, whatever they choose to be. If they want to be a doctor, they want to be a lawyer, they want to be an Indian chief. Just curious as to where you're directing your Trojan as somebody that, had this epiphany in their life and figured out, I'm not going to get where I want to be financially if I continue doing this.
Great question. And, we're very focused on that. And so I'll give you a couple examples of things recently that I feel like we're obligated to teach and train our children, right? I never want to hand that over to the government or to the Sunday school teacher even, right? I feel like the Lord is just has impressed upon my wife and I, that's our duty. And it's a big reason that we homeschool, because I want to ensure, and my wife and I both, is that we are able to teach them truth, right? That truth is not regulated by the government or by anybody else. It's only from God's word. And we want to be able to instill that into them. And so one thing, we take it very seriously, is what they're doing. However, I give you a couple examples just recently. So I mentioned that yesterday I got to go see Art Laffer speak, and I was invited by a local bank here that I bank with quite a bit, just relationships there. So it's a room full of businessmen and women, in a very fancy place. Well, guess what? I took my 11 and 9-year-old sons with me, right? They're homeschooling. I mean, it's like, what an amazing opportunity that homeschooling allows, right? Like, and guess what? They still have to make their studies up. And they're doing it in the truck on the way there and in the truck on the way back. And even this morning early, they're getting up to make up what they missed yesterday at school. But what a great opportunity to hear somebody like that speak. And I'm prepping them before we get in, right? Like even to go to church on Sundays, I'm prepping them, talking about, hey, we're going to talk to people. You're going to talk to an adult. You're going to go up and shake their hand. You're going to look them in the eye. You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to say, how are you doing? You're going to focus on them, ask them questions about their week. And guess what? Afterwards, we're going to say, who did you talk to? What did they say? Right. And so they get in a routine. Even at 8, 9, 10 years old, they can go have a conversation with an adult, look them in the eye, shake their hand, right? And all of those are skills that, guess what, most people unfortunately don't have at my age, it seems. I love that by the time they're 20, it's just not going to be a big deal for them to walk up and have a conversation with somebody like a professional, right? Yeah. So, they're dressed up yesterday. They had their little suit jackets on, and there's an expectation, right? Like they sat at the table at that event differently than they do at home, right? Because there's everybody's so professional around them. All of a sudden, they're little professionals as well. It seemed.
True.
Another example, one is homeschooling allows us to do that, right? It gives us that freedom to say, hey, this is a valuable time for them to go be with dad. I also try to take one of them with me at times on trips if I'm touring a property, or they get to be in those conversations, right? They're seeing the interactions, the negotiations, the friendships that are happening, and how those things work. They are just so much by just travel alone. Another thing is a guitar. They've been taking guitar lessons for a couple of years, but what I've strived to do is, guess what? I schedule in my calendar for me to take them. And I love that. Not just that they're taking lessons, because they're doing really well with guitar, and there's going to be so many ways they can use that. But guess what? It's the intentional time in the truck. It's about 30 minutes for us to get there, 30 minutes back. And we'll listen to a book. Let's say like Rich Dad Poor Dad, or a leadership book that I'm listening to. We may listen to it for 10 minutes, and then we get to talk about it, right? There's intentional time of how to be a leader and leadership skills and all these things that apply to them right now. Another thing is we live on some land. We have some horses. And there's tons of responsibility that they have, and we want to instill in them, through this land. I love for them to get out and get their hands dirty and be creative, and it's amazing the things they come up with by just being outside and being able to play. But they know that, hey, they got to go feed the horses before they get to eat in the morning, right? They got to go take care of the horses in the afternoon before they get dinner, right? Like they have to be able to structure their day and think it through. Hey, well, and if they didn't get it done and we're getting back from whatever it may be, soccer in the dark, well, they got to go still do the horses in the dark, right? There's some responsibility. And one last thing I'll tell you, Brad, is that I created recently a family or a kid-friendly investment plan. And so if anybody's interested, reach out. I'm happy to send it to you. But what I did was there's a couple jars here for my boys, and there's just some simple terms about investing. They put some money in, they have to leave it in so long, or there's a penalty, and they earn a certain rate, right? It's really simple, but it just allows them to start thinking that way. Right. And so I give them jobs right now. They both have their own weed eaters, little electric weed eaters. We have lots of fences that need weed eating. And so they had to work so long to pay off the weed eater. And then they can start earning a little money, right? And so then they can start investing, right? And so it's putting those things in early where they're just start to think that way. And then me and, us talking about it often, right? I
love it. Old Daddy Bank right there, the Bank of Whitney Sewell. Put your money in the jar and watch it grow, kids. But it's true. I do believe that the responsibility of educating our youth really falls on the shoulders of the parents. And, I do the same thing, take my daughter places, we talk, of course, I know, John Maxwell, good friend, Leadership Bible's a great book, a little challenging read for a kid, but just a lot of really good stuff in there. And, of course, John is so good in what he does as well, if you follow the works of John Maxwell. As we wrap up, here at the top of 45 minutes almost, can't believe it's gone by that quickly. I'm sure we'll have a lot of listeners that would love to connect, and more importantly, also maybe take a look at the other website that you probably also have for the adoption side of your mission. What's the best way for people to reach out and learn more about, you, LifeBridge, or obviously your mission, which is empowering families through the adoption process?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Brad. WhitneySewell.com is really the best place. I encourage you there to I have a 7-day challenge for for fathers or men to lead their families through creating a family mission statement. And it just really helps a family to have, say, a sense of purpose and core values and all these things that everybody contributes to. And I walk you through that process. There's some short videos. It's free. But what happens is there's a little ceremony at the end. And it becomes just like a business, right? It's this thing, hey, when there's a big decision to be made, guess what? Not just you, but the kids too know, hey, what is our mission statement? Like they think back to that mission statement that they were involved in creating. And I think that helps with that family unit to be closer and to have a bond that's deeper, especially when you're that CEO or you're that founder that's working all these hours. But you can get that at WhitneySewell.com. You can also go to Omnah Foundation, OMNAH Foundation.org, where you can learn about 100% of donations go directly to families that are selected. So, please check it out. If you know of a family that's looking to adopt and struggling financially, we would love to know about it. There's an application, everything on the website. Or if you're passionate about helping families, obviously we would love for you to help them as well through the foundation also. Or LifeBridge Capital is how you learn about a real estate business. But WhitneySewell.com is the place to find all of that.
I love it. So you heard it, folks. Omnah, OMNAH.com. If you have an interest, follow Whitney. Go to his website. Whitney, thank you so much for being a great guest and sharing your pearls of wisdom with us today. I wish you and your family well. This is Brad Blazar coming at you live again from the Houston studios of the Capital Catalyst Show, saying thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for the reviews. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Capital Catalyst Show with Brad Blazar, the best place for entrepreneurs interested in doing something big in life, having considerably less stress, and a more balanced life. Go to bradblazar.com for more ways to accelerate your success.